It's pretty catchy, isn't it? Catchy tune, that one. Welcome to Reason Speak with Sydney Winston. I am Sydney Winston. It's the 14th of December, 2022. I have a bit of a croaky throat, so I've been putting back the tea with lemon juice and honey. Almost done this cup. But I really kind of almost feel like I've got a chest infection, although it sounds more like I have one than it feels like I have one. Can I tell you? Okay, let me get comfortable here. Alright, so I want to talk in this video about Jack Dorsey, ex-CEO Twitter, ex-CEO of Twitter. How's that? There we go. Jack Dorsey. When he was the CEO of Twitter, Twitter was a cesspool of leftist hate, leftist hatred. That was an absolute disaster. Now, Elon Musk has come in and purchased Twitter from Jack Dorsey and has overnight improved the platform to it's almost like his vision of Twitter is like his vision of SpaceX. Sort of make it the only game in town. And I think he's on his way. He's on his way. I want to talk about or pretty much read the response that Jack Dorsey has made to the Twitter experience, or to the acquisition of Twitter by Elon Musk. Now, I don't know, was it 10, 20 years that Jack Dorsey owned Twitter? And the policies, all of that, the privacy and safety and councils and all this kind of crap, that all led to the downfall of Twitter under Jack Dorsey, because Jack Dorsey was so weak. He caved in to his own employees' demands that conservative-leaning opinions and organizations and people were disappeared off of Twitter. Horrible situation, horrible situation. So now, having wasted a full 5 minutes of your time, I would like to get to reading. Okay, firstly, in Twitter itself, Jack Dorsey says, and I'm going to read this. Jack Dorsey says, there's a lot of conversation around the Twitter files. Can I highlight here? Yes, okay. Here's my take and thoughts on how to fix the issues identified. I'll start with the principles I've come to believe based on everything I've learned and experienced through my past actions as a Twitter co-founder and lead. All right, before we get into them, Jack, why didn't you just implement them as you are going to present them now? Who are you now to tell Elon Musk or give advice to Elon Musk in how to run Twitter after you ran it into the ground, losing $4 million a day? What the fuck were you doing? What the fuck were you thinking? Damn. Thank you, Elon, for taking it out of this child's hands. Little Jackie Dorsey. All right, so he starts off like this. So what does he say? How to the principles? Here are the principles. Number one: social media must be resilient to corporate and government control, and we've seen that, as I've just mentioned, that the Twitter employees seem to have had a lot of influence over Jack's decision to just ban Donald Trump and ban James Woods, is that his name? And ban anybody who's right wing. Ban who else did he ban? Lots of people. I just can't think of any right now. Sorry, but lots of people. So that was number one. Social media must be resilient to corporate and government control. I agree. Yeah, maybe it should be, but why shouldn't it have been under Jack Dorsey's leadership? Why? I don't know. Okay, number two. Only the original author may remove content they produce. Yes, of course. But in all the years that you led Twitter that you founded, all those years, you now conclude that only the original author may remove content they produce? What is wrong with you, Jack? This is something that is all common sense to people who own platforms like yours, or should be. And number three, he says, moderation is best implemented by algorithmic choice. In other words, humans stay out of it. Okay. So basically what he's saying is, I've made these three mistakes, and here they are, basically. These are the three mistakes that he made. But then, this is pretty funny. He says, then, I don't want to edit everything into... I don't want to edit everything into 280 character chunks. Right? I don't want to edit everything into 280 character chunks. This is the guy that started Twitter with 140 characters. 140 character chunks per tweet. Then it was doubled to 280 character chunks. Characters per tweet. And then he says, right now, I really don't want to... This 280 characters per tweet is really a bit of a hassle when you want to say something. So then he moves over to his... to a native internet protocol for social media. It's called... let me just bring it into the picture right there. It's called Get Review. You can see the top. No, you can't see the top. Get Review. GETREVUE. .co. That's it. Getreview.co. Anyway, so then he moves from Twitter with its 280 character chunk limit and goes over to put his whole blog out to on this other platform, which I'll read. He calls himself @Jack, same as Twitter, and we've covered this much, because as soon as he got to this point, he said, "Fuck it, 280 characters for all of this here is not wrong." So let's carry on. The Twitter dude The Twitter when I led it and the Twitter of today do not meet any of these principles. So he's saying that neither the Twitter when he was boss of Twitter, they didn't meet any of those three principles, and neither does the Twitter of today. So okay, I think he's trying to sort of cover his bases here, cover his ass for legal ramifications, especially about lying to Congress. Ooh. I think that Jack Dorsey is going to be sitting in jail. He's going to be sitting in jail right next to the other fraudster, Sam Bankman-Fried. Did the same thing. Well, I know I was boss, but I wasn't really trying to run the company. So Twitter and later and the Twitter of today do not meet any of these principles. This is my fault alone, he says, as I completely gave up pushing for them when an activist entered our stock in 2020. Boy, this is very similar to SBF, huh? I no longer had hope of achieving any of it as a public company with no defensive mechanisms, lack of dual class shares being a key one. I planned my exit at that moment, knowing I was no longer right for the company. So he gave up 2 years ago, 2020, he says. But he still was CEO. But he's planning his exit, whatever that means. Okay, let's see. The biggest mistake I made was continuing to invest in building tools for us to manage the public conversation. The biggest mistake I made was continuing to invest in building tools for us to manage the public conversation. That's one hell of an admission. Versus building tools for the people using Twitter to easily manage it for themselves. This burdened the company with too much power and opened us to significant outside pressure, such as advertising budgets. I generally think companies have become far too powerful, and that became completely clear to me with our suspension of Trump's account. As I've said before, we did the right thing for the public company business at the time, but the wrong thing for the internet and society. Oh, there's a lot there, isn't there? He says, I generally think companies have become far too powerful, and that became completely clear to me with our suspension of Trump's account. So what he's saying is, under his leadership, Twitter became far too powerful, and he realized it when he suspended Trump's account. And the only reason he suspended Trump's account was because of the very, very weak and agendered policies that of that Yoel Roth guy that he put in charge of. Looks like everything that is disseminated. So he says much more about this here. I do not. Oh, this is a tweet from 14th of January 2021. I do not celebrate or feel pride in our having to ban real Donald Trump from Twitter or how we got here. After a clear warning, we take this action. We made a decision with the best information we had based on threats to physical safety, both on and off Twitter. Was this correct? No, Jack, it was not correct. You fucked up. Really, you fucked up, man. I continue to believe there was no ill intent or hidden agendas, and everyone acted according to the best information we had at the time. Of course, mistakes were made, but if we had focused more on tools for the people using the service rather than tools for us, and moved much faster towards absolute transparency, we probably wouldn't be in the situation of needing a fresh reset, which I am supportive of. Again, I owned all of this and our actions, and all I can do is work to make it right. I think this man is looking for excuses. That's what I think. Back to the principles. Of course, governments want to shape and control the public conversation and will use every method at their disposal to do so, including the media. And the power a corporation wields to do the same is only growing. It's critical that the people have tools to resist this, and that those tools are ultimately owned by the people. Allowing a government or a few corporations to own the public conversation is a path towards centralized control. Well, I'd like to say something about your comments here, Jack. You didn't mention, you said allowing a government or a few corporations to own the public conversation, blah, blah. What about your own internal employees who pressured you more than government, who pressured you more than a few corporations? Your own Twitter employees pressured you into speaking for them. Your left-leaning, liberal woke employees who were so scared because Roe v. Wade was shot down, those are the ones who who pushed your button. They pushed your buttons just like they knew they would, and you succumbed to that. So don't make excuses, okay, Jack? Okay, Jack says, I'm a strong believer that any content produced by someone for the internet should be permanent until the original author chooses to delete it. So why didn't you lead the company in the direction that you now say you should have? If you are a strong believer, this is only like recently you became a strong believer, because this is just looking for excuses, dude. It should always be available and addressable. Content takedowns and suspensions should not be possible. Doing so complicates important context, learning, and enforcement of illegal activity. There are significant issues with this stance, of course, but starting with a principle will allow for far better solutions than we have today. The internet is trending towards a world where storage is free and infinite, which places all the actual value on how to discover and see content. Which brings me to the last principle of moderation. Oh yeah, this is the algorithm one. I don't believe a centralized system can do content moderation globally. It can only be done through ranking and relevance algorithms. The more localized, the better. But instead of a company or government building and controlling these solely, people should be able to build and choose from algorithms that best match their criteria, or not have to use any at all. A follow action should always deliver every bit of content from the corresponding account, and the algorithms should be able to comb through everything else through a relevance lens that an individual determines. There's a default G-rated algorithm, and then there's everything else one can imagine. The only way I know of to truly live up to these three principles is a free and open protocol for social media that is not owned by a single company or group of companies and is resilient to corporate and government influence. Oh, please. What are you fucking talking about? Elon Musk can uphold these three principles and still be a private owner of the company. Why? Because he has integrity. Because he doesn't open up the back door to government, to political parties. So you're full of shit. All right, where was I? The problem today is that we have companies who own both the protocol and discovery of content, which ultimately puts one person in charge of what's available and seen or not, like you, Jack. This, by definition, a single point of failure. This is, by definition, a single point of failure. No matter how great the person, and over time will fracture the public conversation and may lead to more control by governments and corporations around the world. Okay, yeah, we know that. If you ultimately put one person in charge, but who's got integrity, you're wrong. If somebody's got integrity and he's ethical and he's in charge of this of the Twitter platform with your three principles in place, then there's no reason not to have that person in. Just because you, Jack, cannot uphold your own three principles, couldn't uphold your own three principles from the very beginning, that doesn't mean that others can't. So you're making a statement here that is false. To carry on, I believe many companies can build a phenomenal business off an open protocol. For proof, look at both the web and email. The biggest problem with these models, however, is that the discovery mechanisms are far too proprietary and fixed instead of open or extendable. Companies can build more profitable services that complement rather than lock down how we access this massive collection of conversation. There is no need to own or host it themselves. Okay, so yeah, emails are pretty much difficult to discover, I guess, if that's what he's saying. But let me just read on. He continues. Many of you won't trust this solution just because it's me stating it. Yes, exactly. I don't trust it because Jack said it, and Jack had his chance. So don't fuck around, Jack. I get it, he says. But that's exactly the point. Trusting any one individual with this comes with compromises, not to mention being way too heavy a burden for the individual. Bullshit! Just because you are not an ethical person, just because you don't have integrity and credibility, doesn't mean that Elon Musk doesn't. And I believe he does. He wants us to be the best free speech platform he can. And just because it's not perfect right now, it hasn't been tweaked quite 100% yet, doesn't mean that it won't be. So, Jack, I think you're being a crybaby. All you're saying is, I couldn't uphold these three principles, and and now Elon Musk has got it, and he can't uphold these three principles either. You're a crybaby, Jack. He even continues more. He says it has to be something akin to what Bitcoin has shown to be possible. If you want proof of this, get out of the US and European bubble of the Bitcoin price fluctuations and learn how real people are using it for censorship resistance in Africa and Central South America. Who cares? Bitcoin's crypto. It's a Ponzi scheme. Crypto is a Ponzi scheme. Bitcoin is crypto. End of story. How can you possibly have any? Where do you find the value in a crypto coin? Where's the value? Show me. But Jack continues. He says, I do still wish for Twitter and every company to become uncomfortably transparent in all their actions, and I wish I forced more of that years ago. I do believe absolute transparency builds trust. As for the files, I wish they were released, WikiLeaks style, with many more eyes and interpretations to consider, and along with that, commitments of transparency for present and future actions. I'm hopeful all of this will happen. There's nothing to hide, only a lot to learn from. You're a doist, Jack. Don't give me that. The current attacks on my former colleagues could be dangerous and doesn't solve anything. If you want to blame, direct it at me and my actions or lack thereof. Crap! Sure, we'll direct it at you as well, but your former colleagues have everything. No, your former colleagues are every much as culpable as you are, Jack, for what happened to Twitter. Your employers defeated you. Your employers who kept on tweeting internally about how can this guy not be banned? How can this conservative talk like this and not be banned? And how can Donald Trump not be banned? And blah, blah, blah. And then you caved in. You caved. A sitting president. You fucking asshole. Jack, you really are a fucking asshole for doing what you did. Let me just read what your words. Make me calm down a little bit. Now, he goes on. As far as the free and open social media protocol goes, there are many competing projects. He mentions a few, and there will be many more. I don't know why, but he says one will have a chance at becoming a standard like HTTP or SMTP. This isn't about a decentralized Twitter. This is a focused and urgent push for a foundational core technology standard to make social media a native part of the internet. I believe this is critical both to Twitter's future and the public conversation's ability to truly serve the people, which helps hold governments and corporations accountable, and hopefully makes it all a lot more fun and informative again. To accelerate open internet and protocol work, I'm going to open a new category of Start Small grants. Quote, open internet development, unquote. It will start with a focus of giving cash and equity grants to engineering teams working on social media and private communication protocols, Bitcoin, and a web-only mobile operating system. I'll make some grants next week, starting with 1 mm per year. I don't know what an mm is, to Signal. Okay, so he's going to grant something to Signal. And okay, so he's trying to deflect people away from Twitter, it seems. That's what he's doing. I don't think this was a very complimentary. I don't think this was complimentary to Jack at all. What do you think? Do you think Jack should just stay out of it and shut his fucking mouth? I do. But that's just me. So I just wanted to bring this to you, get it on record, and that's pretty much it. I'll see you next time.